Praise the Lord. Try to imagine yourself floating a little rowboat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Very calm day. The sea is like glass. Nothing around you but horizon and clouds. And you look down over the side of the boat, and you can see how he layeth his beams in the chambers, the pillars of sunlight going down in the water. You can see down a couple of feet, probably. But you just so happen to be located in the Philippine Sea, over the Marianas Trench, which is the deepest part of the ocean, 7 miles deep. You could put Mount Everest on the bottom of the ocean there, put Mount Katahdin on top of that, and there still would be a mile from the top of Mount Katahdin up to the surface of the water. You can't see what's on the bottom, you can only see down just a little bit. The verse I'm going to share with you this morning is a little bit like that. You can see a little bit, I can see a little bit in the shallows, but I know I sense in my spirit is much deeper. It's deeper than I have the knowledge to plumb, or the wisdom, or the power. But I'll share with you what I see in it. It is found on the bottom of the 6th chapter of the Gospel of St. Mark, at the very bottom of that last verse. And these are the words. You want to look it up? Please follow along. Just look at them on the printed page. As many as touched him were made whole. As many as touched him were made whole. It seems at first nothing spectacular about those last 8 words. None of them are particularly dynamic or explosive. 6 out of the 8 are one-syllable words. It's just like looking over that boat. You don't see a little bit, there's nothing unusual. But down below, there's tremendous depths in this verse. There is some explosive things. Now, the secret power is in the pronoun here. The first one is him. For that him is Jesus Christ. That's important. But then there's 2 other words, touched and whole. As it is in many times in Scripture, the meanings of these words in our English are not the same as they were in biblical language. That's very much the case in these 2 words. Touched does probably not mean what you think it does. And whole needs some explaining too. So let's take a look at some of these things in the language of the Bible. As many as touched him were made whole. I think a good explanation of some of these words is found in the 1st chapter of Mark. I'll share this with you. Jesus cleansed that leper. Let's go to that for a second, just a few verses. Mark 1, 40 to 42. And there came a leper to him, there's the him, Jesus, beseeching him, and kneeling down to him, and saying unto him, If thou wilt, thou canst make me whole. Leper knew he could do it, didn't know whether he will do it or not. Jesus settled that. Jesus, moved with compassion, put forth his hand, and touched him, and saith unto him, I will, be thou clean. And as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy departed from him, and he was cleansed. Here's this word, touched. It's in our text. It's touched him. Jesus touched him. Can I borrow my wife for a second up here? You use it for illustration. Here we go. It's going to be fun. Now put your finger out. Okay, now, in our language, this is a touch. Now, there is something about this I want you to know. I'm touching her, but when I do that, there's a contact. She's touching me also. The minute you touch Jesus, he's touching you. The minute he touches you, you're touching him. But this is not the meaning of that word. The word in the Greek language is haptomai. It means to cling to attach one's self to. And the best way to illustrate that is this. This is what that word means. This is what Jesus did for the leper. He didn't go like that. He gave him a hug. Like, we're married, so we can do this. It's okay. It's not public display of affection. It's usefulness.
Bears.
That's right. We do that a lot. But I think it's a good visual. That's what the word touch means. To attach oneself to cling to. As many as touched him were made whole. Now the word whole. The word here is sozo. Sozo, everywhere in the Bible is translated either whole or translation or heal. Sozo in Greek means to heal, to deliver, to save, to make well. To heal, to deliver, to save, to make well. It's used for salvation and it's used for healing. All those terms, it's like there's a number of words like that. I mean, shalom is a big word. It means peace, prosperity, health, friendship. The word help in the Hebrew, yasha, means to protect, to open wide, to make free, to deliver. It's a word that's just full of meaning in it. You find so many little cases. Let me just go down through a few of them. Matthew 8:14-15. When Jesus was coming to Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid and sick of a fever. And he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she arose and ministered to them. Isn't there something so gracefully, lovingly, casual about that? He's walking through the house, and he sees her lying there, and he just touches her as he passes by, and she just gets right up. The touch, the love comes to him, the power comes through him and into her. Just a touch from his hand. What a beautiful moment that is. In Mark 3:9-11, and he spake to his disciples that a small ship should wait on him because of the multitudes, lest they should throng him. For he had healed many, insomuch that they pressed upon him for to touch him, as many as had plagues. They wanted to touch him. They knew there was something there that happened from that. There is something that always happens when you want to touch Jesus. But we'll get to the end of this thing, we'll see what does that look like. Luke 6:19, the whole multitude sought to touch him, for there went virtue out of him, and he healed them all. Mark 3:10, he healed many, inasmuch that they pressed upon him to touch him. Mark 10:13-16, and they brought young children to him that he should touch them. And he took them up in his arms, put his hands upon them, and blessed them. I think there's that picking them up. He didn't just touch them, he picked up those children. I can see gentle Jesus, sweet and dear, meek and mild, loving a child. And sometimes he loves the parents who carry those children. In Isaiah, he says, I will gather them as a lamb to my heart, and I will gently guide those that are with young. And that's all of you. If you're praying for children and grandchildren, you're with young. You have 4 young ones right up here. So he'll carry you as you try to carry them. He'll help you. He'll guide you with wisdom. As you pray and you show love to the people you care about. You touch him and he'll touch you back. Matthew 17:5-8. When Christ was transfigured. A marvelous scene of the transfiguration. And he's talking with Moses and Elijah. And it says, while he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And a voice came out of the cloud which said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face, and they were sore afraid. But Jesus came and touched them, and said, arise and be not afraid. When they lifted up their eyes, they saw no man but Jesus only. Have you ever had a moment like that? If you haven't, you should. Christians should know this. We don't want amiable religiosity. This isn't Sunday morning God club. We're gathered here to worship the living God, who wants more of you than you're giving him, and more of me than I'm giving him. He wants to love you more, do more for you, be more involved in everything you do. He wants you to go up to a higher level of faith, a higher level of love, a higher level of sanctification and dedication to him, because that's where your joy will be, that's where your strength will be, that's where your victory will be. Have you heard of these people that every time they pray for somebody, they're healed? They have this power with God. Where do they get it from? They draw closer to him, and he draws closer to you. Luke 7:11-16. This is a different picture too. And it came to pass the day after that he went into a city called Nain. And many of his disciples went with him, and much people. And when he came nigh to the gate of the city, behold, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother. She was a widow, and much people of the city were with her. Imagine what her face looked like, walking behind the stretcher, carrying the dead body of her son. I don't know what it looked like, but you could probably feel grief in your own heart if you looked at it. Because that's what Jesus felt. He saw her. And when he sees pain, he's got to do something about it. He has too much compassion to just pass by. And he came. He had compassion on her. He saw her and had compassion. And he said, weep not. Well, she might have thought it strange when Jesus says, weep not. Sometimes he'll give you an instruction. There's a pause between the instruction, its finality, and when it's fulfilled. She could have easily thought when Jesus says, weep not. She could have easily thought, what do you mean, weep not? My son is dead. You're telling me not to cry. I've got something to cry about. In about 2 seconds, you won't. Yeah, he knew that. Hang on, lady. I got something to show you here. And he came and he touched the bier. And they that bare him stood still, and he said, young man, I say unto thee, arise. And he that was dead sat up. and began to speak, and he delivered him to his mother. Just the touch of Christ upon his stretcher. He just touched it, and something went through the stretcher to that child and raised him up. Death can't exist where the touch of Christ is. Weakness and fear and sorrow, he will wipe those tears away sooner or later. He'll turn your mourning into joy, and your sackcloth into ashes, and he'll cause you to dance instead of be mourning. And even after he was arrested in Gethsemane, they were carrying him away to be tried that night and later crucified. And one of his disciples, Peter, came up with a sword trying to rescue Jesus, and he smote the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. This is one of the people who is arresting Jesus, just had his ear cut off by kind of a renegade disciple. And Peter was always a little impetuous. But Jesus answered and said, allow this. And he touched his ear and healed him. He touched his ear. Even then, even after the agony of Gethsemane, that's not very often taught on. One of these days, we'll do a teaching on Gethsemane. You're not going to feel good during it, but you'll feel good after. An actual study of what took place in Gethsemane, it was the worst thing he went through. It was a horrible, grinding thing. The word Gethsemane means olive press. Squeeze, nothing's left to come out of you. And even after that, on his way to be crucified, one of the people who was arresting him, he touched his ear and healed him. Touched his ear, just passing by on the way to the trials. I mean, these things were amazing to me. Let me look at the ultimate thing. Let me check the time here. In Mark 5, you know the story. Jesus was walking along, and Jairus comes to him, the ruler of the synagogue, and said, my daughter's dying. Come and lay your hands if she may live. It says that Jesus went with him. A bunch of people followed him, thronged him. So you have this picture of Jesus in this crowd. You've got to try to imagine what this looks like to appreciate it. It's like a river of people. You know, a crowd. And Jesus is in the middle. Everybody's bumping him. They're trying to like Secret Service around the president. He's going through a crowd. They surround him. And everybody's bumping into everybody else. And this river of people is moving through these crowds on both sides as he's passing by. And there was a little woman, it says. A certain woman had an issue of blood 12 years. She'd been suffering a long time. The issue of blood was probably an internal hemorrhage, which made her ceremonially unclean. Nobody could have anything to do with her. If you're bleeding, they won't touch you. You can't be around anybody. She's ostracized and set apart and lonely and suffering. She had spent all of her money on physicians and was nothing better, but rather grew worse. Gee, doesn't that sound familiar? You ever had that? Ever somebody spent thousands and thousands of dollars and died in treatment and they got worse? It's not a new problem. When she had heard of Jesus, she came. Boy, there's a message in that. She heard and she came. Somebody told her. Said, look, you've been 12 years with this. Have you heard about that young rabbi from Nazareth? Have you heard what they're saying in the marketplace? He's raised the dead. He's healed the blind. There was that crippled man down the road. Now he's walking and dancing. Maybe you should go see him. Maybe he could do something for you. Who was it that told her about Jesus? We don't know their name. They know it up there. This woman knows the name of that person. Somebody invited me to church. That's why I'm saved. I heard a preacher got behind the pulpit that day, and he was talking about Jesus, and I heard who he was, and I felt the Spirit of God tugging at my heart. And I didn't know what was happening to me, except that it was real. When he gave the invitation, I went down. She heard and she came in the press and behind and touched his garment. For she said, if I can just touch his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway, the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she had been healed of the plague. She felt it. I don't know if you ever experienced this, but you know, when somebody is healed sometimes, in a supernatural manner, they feel a warmth come through, where they feel something touch them or tingling. They'll feel something. It's a common response. She felt something had happened to her. And how she knew that she was healed. And Jesus immediately, knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned around and pressed and said, who touched me? Of course, the disciples were incredulous. They said, what do you mean, who touched you? You see the multitude thronging you? The word throng there means to crush. He was being crushed, strangled. The word throng means strut straggler. Everybody's bumping and you're saying, who touched you? See, but Jesus knew the difference from somebody who touches him and somebody who doesn't touch him. And he knew it. She turned around, knowing what was done, and he said to her, daughter, thy faith hath saved thee, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and behold thy plague. You see that word whole is twice in one sentence in verse 34. Thy faith hath made thee whole. That word whole is sozo. It's translated in English whole. The first Greek word is sozo, means you've been saved, your soul's been saved. But there was more than the touch, there was a belief. He read the heart, as only he could do, and knew this woman believed who he was. In a second, he identified with her and saved her. And be whole in thy place. That second word, whole, it means healthy, healed. Saved and healed. But going back to this thing about who touched me. If you think about it, how did he know that? But I think about this verse, and I preached this once before here, about a year ago, on this whole portion of Scripture. But I always think about that crowd and pressing around. Right now, there's crowds of people in churches, cathedrals, little ones, all over the world that are worshiping God today. This is the Sabbath. Thousands, and maybe there's a lot of churches where there's thousands of people crowding in and bumping into him, but not touching him. He said nothing about the crowd that was surrounding him, but somebody was different. And she had to get down on her hands and knees because she touched the hem of his garment. That's his prayer shawl hanging off of his shoulder. She had to crawl on her knees to reach up and touch the hem of the garment. It says that in Luke. She reached up, so she had to be on her knees. She humbled herself and came forward. And he stopped because somebody had reached out to touch him in faith, in love, in belief of what he was and what he could do. And if you touch him that way, he'll stop for you. Some people go to church every Sunday for 50 years. They're proud of the fact they've never missed a service and they've never touched Jesus once in their life. There's millions of Christians like that, believers like that. They don't have that experience of reaching out to touch him in faith. When you touch him, he stops. He recognizes that one who really believes, who really knows, who really just wants to say, I love you. There was a woman in the church where I was saved, and a lovely little woman. She was very, very slender and kind of scraggly looking, and she didn't have a whole lot of teeth left. And she was just not, I guess, too much to look at. But she loved the Lord, and she was there every Wednesday and every Sunday. And there was also a lady that came and visited from time to time. And she was a very magnificent woman, dressed and attired. She had been an opera singer. She was classically trained and sung all over the world. And she would come to church from time to time, and she felt she would benevolently grace us by singing. And she would come up and she would have the presence, and she would sing these songs of praise. And her singing was, it was impeccable. Her voice was thrilling. Beautiful voice. The other little woman who used to love to sing on Wednesday nights, I don't think she ever hit a note. I don't think she did, but she was about off key about every note. But she'd lift up her hands and she'd talk about Jesus again, and the tears would come down her face, and it moved everybody in that little church because she was worshiping him. She was touching him with that song she was singing. She had more spirit in her than an opera singer did. I'd rather watch her any day of the week because when she sang, she moved my soul because she was praising him. She was touching him for real. We have an awful lot of music today in churches. It doesn't touch him at all. Taps the toe. Doesn't touch the heart. Be careful if something makes your toe tap and doesn't make you reach up and touch it. But that difference, that difference is so important. Whatever your need is, if you're afraid of anything, touch him, and he'll touch you back. If you have a hope you're nurturing, touch him. Watch what happens. Whatever your need is, just whisper his name. If you're weary and you're tired, you think you just can't take another step and the world has beat you up all day, you just close your eyes and you say, oh, Jesus, help me, Lord, to end this day. Watch what happens. When you stop like that, you're going to feel something. You'll notice that you mean business. You're not amongst the crowd. Let me close with a favorite poem of mine. It's about an auction, and they're auctioning off an old violin. And here's what it says. 'Twas battered and scarred, and the auctioneer thought it scarcely worth his while to waste much time on the old violin, but he held it up with a smile. What am I bidding, good folks? He cried. Who will start bidding for me? $1, then two, only two, $2, who'll make it three? $3 once, $3 twice, going for three, but no. From the room far back, a gray-haired man came forward and picked up the bow. Then wiping the dust from the old violin and tightening the loose strings, he played a melody pure and sweet as an angel sings. The music ceased, and the auctioneer, with a voice that was quiet and low, said, what am I bidding? For the old violin, and he held it up with a bow. $1,000? And who'll make it two? 2,000? Who'll make it three? 3,000 once, 3,000 twice, and going and gone, said he. The people cheered, but some cried, we do not quite understand. What changed its worth? Swift came the reply, the touch of the master's hand. And many a man with life out of tune and barren and scattered with sin is auctioned cheap to the thoughtless crowd, much like the old violin. A mess of porridge, a glass of wine, a game when he travels on. He's going once, he's going twice, he's going and he's almost gone. But the master comes, and the foolish crowd can never quite understand the worth of his soul and the change that's wrought by the touch of the master's hand. That's the hand of Jesus. And if you want him to touch you, you touch him and he'll touch you back. Father, thank you for this truth. May this precious truth sink down deep into our souls. May we retain it. At what time we need it, may it bubble up into our minds. And we just speak his name and reach to touch him. And he touches us back. May it be so for everyone in this church. For all of us, Lord. In Jesus' name.